This will not be a perfect video, obviously. I mean, it'll be pretty good. I do have some standards, and I got this sweet new microphone arm for my YouTube setup, so I'm like a legit YouTuber now. I gotta be, real honest with you guys here, and say that it doesn't make me feel great to put out anything that's not like absolutely 100% perfect, like as perfect as I can make it. So even, making some slightly imperfect video is like a step in the right direction for me, and could be for you as well. Like this is one of those things, including some pretty surprising things that I've discovered about perfectionism, both in my research for this video and just in my own life and work. So, I'm a full-time creator. I talk about books and business and, to a lesser extent, health and fitness. So, I mean, I've got, 100,000 followers across platforms, right? So, like, I'm doing pretty well. I ship, like, of like volume when it comes to work. Like, my work output is pretty phenomenal. Like, I've got, articles and videos and posts, like, coming out, like, every single day, like, multiple times a day. So, like, I do release work. Like, I put a tremendous amount of work into it. But I could be so much further along if I sort of released these sort of perfectionistic tendencies, and they do hold tremendous amount of people back. And if they hold you back, you're gonna be helped by this video, I think. And so it's some of the things that I've found out. I've got a few book recommendations for you guys. We'll talk about that, including a little tiny sort of segue into talking about one of like history's most famous perfectionists and sort of kind of what I learned from him, and some good things about perfectionism too. Like some people just equate it as like taking pride in one's work and like just being dissatisfied with anything less than their absolute best. And I don't think that's a bad thing. It's just when it shades into these sort of pathological feelings of like when it's tied to like things like self-worth and stuff like that. And which kind of leads me into one of the things that I found most surprising about perfectionism was how many different kinds that there are. And like there's it's associated with positive strivings, like we talked about, wanting to do a good job and feeling good about doing your absolute best, which is a message that I try to get out, in a lot of my posts, just how important it is to do your absolute best. So I'll never deny that for an instant. But then there's one kind of self-oriented perfectionism where you just have these negative feelings of self-worth, and they're directly tied to being less than perfect in like every single thing, where you're constantly judging yourself and criticizing yourself for not being absolutely perfect. And luckily, like that doesn't necessarily describe me. Like I don't feel negatively about myself for releasing imperfect work. I can't do it. Like it's difficult. Like it's something that I've had to like consciously work on. And I'm also like I'm kind of I don't know. I'm not pleased when I see like spelling mistakes or like design errors in one of my posts or videos. But it's actually kind of a strategy that I've sort of stumbled into for getting over it. So it's kind of like an exposure therapy for perfectionists, where you release something that's not 100% in everything. So, it could be like a spelling mistake in an article, or, something like in this video, I've got the screen kind of like tilted and crooked, right? Now, I mean, that was intentional, so I guess you could call it more perfect for having for being in. But like spelling mistakes, or say like something about your design is like a little off. And like if you realize that before you hit publish, and then you're able to sort of hit publish anyway, that is exceptionally difficult to do at first, but it gets a lot easier. So you sort of like expose yourself to, less perfect work over time. And I find that that actually helps, like in a weird way. You start to sort of not obsess over that as much. And then there's another kind of perfectionism that's like more other oriented. And that one, I'm glad I don't feel. Where it's kind of you hold other people to ridiculously high levels, like high standards of perfect, basically. And you're like constantly judging, criticizing, haranguing. It's actually not often that I get to use the word haranguing in a video, so I take it whenever I can. But that kind of perfectionism where you sort of find fault with everyone. I don't have a whole lot of advice there, but it's one of those things that it's like you kind of have to get over that, or else you're not going to be much fun to be around. Nobody's going to like you or want to be your friend. So like that's probably one of the most harmful forms of perfectionism. But I'll circle back to that book recommendation that I mentioned, and it's a book called Perfection by James Victore. And I had no idea who this guy was before I picked up the book. I was reading this book, and I was really impressed with it. And I knew next to nothing about this guy going into it, but he was saying some pretty damn cool things and some helpful things too. And one thing that he says, the antidote to this kind of perfection is action and kind of just getting stuff out there. Like shipping basically is the word for it. And I found that to be incredibly helpful myself, and kind of like we talked about already, just getting stuff out there that's less than perfect, and like it really does help. And like the book's kind of funny too. One thing he says that an object at rest, like your ass, tends to stay at rest. It's kind of like this study that I heard about a couple years ago, and I don't know if it was a study or an experiment or something like that, but basically it took place in a pottery class. And stop me if you've heard this one. The assignment at the end of the semester was to make the best possible piece of pottery that you possibly could. Um, some nifty alliteration there. Yeah, and so the class was divided into two, and so one half of the class they basically worked on one single piece for the entire semester, and so they were working on this one thing, making it absolutely perfect, and like just obsessing over every single detail of this piece of pottery. And then you've got the other half of the class that made one pot or one something every single day. And so what happened with the class by the end of it, it was the half of the class that made a different one every single day that actually improved more than the people who were basically stuck on this one single piece, because they were making it was a process of like constant iteration and improvement. And I've kind of found that in my own career, I guess you could call it, as a creator. Obviously, I mean, you look at my earlier YouTube videos, and they're not good. The lighting's bad. I don't have this nifty microphone arm. My audio wasn't great. I literally was just using my iPhone audio. Like it was not great. But 100 videos later, I've got I'm doing a lot better with editing. I'm learning a bunch of stuff. I've got improved audio, and all these things, right? And it's this constant iteration. And if I had tried to make that first video like absolutely perfect, before I released it, then maybe I wouldn't have gotten to the point where I've got 100 videos and I've made 100 steps forward, basically. So that type of thing. And contrasts with like basically history's most famous perfectionist. I read a biography about Michelangelo earlier last year, and the book is really good. It's called Michelangelo: A Life in Six Masterpieces, or something like that. The author is Miles J. Unger. And Michelangelo, like he painted the Sistine Chapel, right, or the roof of the Sistine Chapel, the ceiling, and he would obsess over like every single like brush stroke and corner, and even the corners that like nobody, like literally nobody would ever see or notice. And people would ask him, like, he was a very religious dude, and people would ask him, like why are you putting so much effort into like this thing, like no, literally nobody is going to see. And he was like, God will see it. So I mean, hey, for him, man, that is like admirable commitment to artistic excellence. And like not like most of us cannot be Michelangelo's, not with tens of thousands of hours of practice and effort. But at the same time, like he, like, again, like his earliest works weren't like they were not masterpieces. Like nobody starts off as Michelangelo, not even Michelangelo. And so that's very important to understand when it comes to overcoming this type of stuff. You just got to ship it, which kind of, okay, so a couple last book recommendations. Um, Shipping basically brings to mind two things. So I associate Seth Godin with that term. So like he's always like cajoling people or exhorting, all these words that I never use. Exhorting people to ship things, like get them out there, like just ship them. So I recommend a bunch of books by Seth Godin. Most recently, I read The Practice by him, which is really good. There's one called The Dip that's actually really, really good. It's short too. You can read it in like a day. And basically, the idea is that, like, the dip refers to that, the dip in enthusiasm, like, after, like, you first get started with, like, a new project, you're excited about it, you're motivated and fired up. And then, before you get to the end where you finally actually, ship the thing, you experience the dip where you're, like, in the middle of this sort of chaotic thing that you just like you lost the initial spark of motivation and you're not at the end yet. You're at this dip of despair, basically, and the book is about how to keep going, obviously, but also whether you should just quit. And sometimes the answer is to quit. And so yeah, definitely a book recommendation that I'd recommend. So yes, Function. I almost messed up that title. It's another really good one. I'll put links down below in the description there. And then there's another program called Ship 30 for 30 by the writer Nicholas Cole. And for online, if you are an online writer or creator, highly recommend it. But even if you don't take that course, I mean, it's a few $100s. Definitely read two of his books. One is called Snow Leopard, and the other is called The Art and Business of Online Writing. Both books helped me out tremendously. On both of them, I took pages and pages and pages of notes, and they're just spectacular books. And when you think of it, like, everything is writing. Even these YouTube videos, like, this isn't just off the top of my head. I have like bullet points that I want to hit, like a partial script. I didn't script out every single word, but I wrote out something in, like, talking points, beforehand. Even like the best television shows, they have scripts. Like, everything is writing. And if you can put your ideas forward in a persuasive, clear, easy to understand way, that is power in the age of attention. It's all about, I mean, at least today, it's all about the attention that you can command from people. And yeah, so those books definitely help. But they also helped because of my approach to growing my business. And, like, I'll talk about this more in future videos, and, subscribe to the channel if you want to hear more about those. But, like, I've kind of been brute forcing my way to success here. And, like, just by doing more. And, by shipping, by just posting, like, hundreds and hundreds of times every single month, just, like, content everywhere, videos, posts, articles, just, getting it out there and just doing more and more and more, and, shipping again and again. And, there's way too much to talk about. There's the rule of 100, which I'm going to make a video about that. Credit Alex Hormozy for the rule of 100. It helped me tremendously as well. And so yeah, come back for videos on that. But I think this is like the perfect length for this one, or the imperfect length, I guess. I'm going to edit this video now. I'm going to put in like 95% of my total effort into editing this video, making it as close to perfect as I possibly can. And now I'll see if I can nail this outro. Thanks very much for watching. I'll see you next time. And hey, should be reading. That's pretty good, right? Yeah. All right, I'm done. Waste time, no, I make time. All these people wanna hate, fine, I'ma make mine. While you sitting there complaining, I'll be training. While you sitting there just waiting, I'm creating. Yeah, sometimes I think that I'm unstoppable.